Nestled in the Shenandoah Valley, Lexington, Virginia is a familiar American town in many ways. Residents and university students walk among the independently owned businesses downtown. There's a prototypical main street that governs its traffic, its commerce, and the story to be tracked here. But in other ways important to that story, Lexington is a crossroads, wholly unique, constellating a surprising number of distinct groups, histories, and institutions that bring a broad national debate into particularly sharp relief. This is the story of a city and a flag, of histories past and rivalries present. A question of how a city will present itself amidst the voices of its citizens and others who come to claim it. Lexington is unusual in having not one, but two universities that provide a professional base and a distinctive face to the community. Washington and Lee University and the Virginia Military Institute have been associated with a range of acclaimed citizen soldiers, none more so than the two Confederate generals and educators whose names appear everywhere in Lexington today. Robert E. Lee was invited to assume the presidency of Washington College after the Civil War. The school was renamed Washington and Lee for his efforts in rebuilding and modernizing the university in the wake of the war. Thomas Stonewall Jackson, a member of the VMI faculty who became one of the most charismatic, daring, and celebrated of Lee's officers, was a community leader in Lexington and is buried in the cemetery at the south end of Main Street that still bears his name. The confluence of these figures brings tourists who travel to see the associated museums at Lee Chapel, the Stonewall Jackson House, as well as the grave sites of the heroes and their horses alike. Their coincidence is also a crucial reason why Confederate heritage groups continue to defend and target the strategic symbolic value of Lexington itself. And it's the Virginia state holiday dedicated to their memory that starts this story.
There was a local Confederate group, the Sons of the Confederacy, the Stonewall Brigade of the Sons of the Confederacy, which has put on a little ceremony during Lee Jackson Day for some time, and I don't know off the top of my head how many years. And they asked the city a couple of years ago if they could fly some flags.
We submitted a request to the city manager prior to their recent law. It was pretty much a unformalized process, and typically the city manager, as far as I know, would have made that decision. He didn't feel comfortable about it, so he took it to city council.
I don't think that would be nearly as volatile, except that it coincides with a weekend for the Martin Luther King federal holiday. So again, it's the federal government imposing its will on the states who so valiantly tried to set themselves free 150 years ago.
There was pretty heated discussion, I guess, on the issue. They didn't have much to say about any specific flags that we were flying. Some of them just didn't want to honor the request at all. A few of them made comments about the flag itself, but they were under an injunction from 1993 that they really weren't supposed to take any action per se against any type of Confederate flag. So I'm sure their attorney told them to avoid speaking to that particular issue as much as possible.
In 1993, when this first hit court, what happened was there was a 100th anniversary reenactment of the dedication of the statue of Stonewall Jackson over his grave. And the city had planned some nice little ceremony down there.
And the Sons of Confederate Veterans, specifically the Fincastle Rifles Camp, which is out of Roanoke, wanted to participate in the ceremonies. And they were told that they couldn't bring any Confederate flags to the ceremonies on city property.
And that's what riled it up to start off with. And so they filed a suit over the whole thing, saying, wait a minute, this is city property, public property, and we're just waving flags. And there we are. And who got behind them was the ACLU, and who viewed it very much as a free speech issue. And the Sons of the Confederacy won. It was the city's attorneys decided we're going to lose this, we better just settle it. And so they settled it. There was a consent decree, and the city said, we're not going to do this ever again.
That's when they agreed to an injunction being placed against the city, that the city wouldn't interfere with any displays of any Confederate icons in the future if the SCV would drop a case, and the SCV asked for $1 in punitive damages. So we got $1. I think they had to pay the SCV, the ACLU's legal fees as part of the deal, and the injunction was put on the books.
Anyway, after some tussle with the city agreed to allow them to fly these flags from the city flagpoles during that weekend.
We could have flown any flag, particular flags that we wanted, but we chose 3 flags. We chose a period Virginia flag. We chose a what they call a second national Confederate flag, which was mainly white flag, but in the upper corner has the familiar Southern Cross. And then we also chose Robert E. Lee's headquarters flag, which is a 3 red, white, and red striped flag with a blue union similar to the U.S. flag, and a star pattern in it, which was based on the original Confederate flag. So that one is particular to Lee. That particular pattern of the way the stars were was designed by his wife. So we thought, for Lee Jackson Day, we would pick a flag that was more specific to Lee. And that other flag, the stainless banner, the second national, it came into play about the time Stonewall Jackson was killed, and one of its first prominent roles was draping his casket. So it came to be associated with Jackson for that reason. So we chose that flag, and of course just the period Virginia flag in honor of the state. Both men were Virginians.
I look at what they were using, and they're more historical. They're almost innocuous compared to the rebel flag, what people would identify as the Confederate flag. It's more historic, certainly. These are the flags that Lee and Jackson would have recognized as Confederate flags.
Because we wanted it to be about the history and about Lee and Jackson, and not so much about that particular flag. Although, we will certainly be happy to display and defend the display of that. We didn't want that to become the central issue. And so, some folks try to turn it into a fight about that flag, but that wasn't even one of them that was flown.
I was driving in Lexington to work, and all of a sudden I became aware that the city streets of Lexington, the main street in particular, was decorated with Confederate flags that were hanging off the poles that belonged to the city. That was a bit of a shocker. That had never happened before.
Oh, flags from the city flagpoles. Boy, I was not happy with that. Not at all. In fact, that day I rode from one end of town to the next just to make sure that I was seeing what I was seeing. And I was not happy.
I felt that this was deeply not right. I was sure that it was offensive to a lot of people, and to me in particular. I am a teacher. I teach young people, and I felt that the Confederate flags decorating the town where we all live and work were sending a wrong message to the students. I also felt that as a faculty member, as someone who teaches them, my just standing by silently would also send a wrong message to my students. I really felt compelled to do something. So after I taught my classes, I went straight to the city hall and spoke to the city administrators about the situation.
I mean, we know that the flag is a part of our history. We can't deny that.
This was the first year where the flags were hung in public spaces. We usually have a parade of Sons of the Confederacy, and it's a very colorful parade. The men are dressed in the Confederate uniforms, the women wear old-fashioned dresses, and they do carry the flags, and they carry the guns and the bayonets, but they carry the flags in their own hands. This was the first time when the flags were hung off the poles belonging to the city. Ultimately, this was, as I saw it, pushing the envelope. This has never happened before. But as I understood, once I spoke to the city council, it would happen every single year. It was clear that my voice was not sufficient. And in fact, I was the only person protesting the flags in the city hall. But I was sure that a lot of people felt just like me. They just did not come to the city hall to express their views. So the same very afternoon, I drafted a petition and began collecting signatures.
If they want to fly the flag, take it to their yard and fly it. You know, fly it off of their porch, private property. There's nothing we can do about that. I don't want to see it flown on something that I pay my taxes on. And it's not only me, it's a lot of people from both races, you know, that feel that way.
That was the only thing that ultimately the petition asked the city council to consider. We were not asking for banning the parades or banning people from displaying their flags on their trucks or their porches. All we wanted to do was to prevent the people who wanted to display the flag to display them on the poles that belong to the citizens of Lexington. Like anyone who collects signatures, I accosted people in the street, I accosted people in the supermarket or outside the supermarket. I was pretty tireless in my efforts. I went to the black churches. The black community felt that this was egregious, and people were absolutely unified in their sentiment. It was heartbreaking to hear that the Confederate flag was hanging right in front of the front door of the First Baptist Black Church in Lexington.
I got a call from one of our members who said that there was some lady running around up at VMI trying to get all the professors to sign this petition.
You know, it's that she's been involved with it, and that so many W&L people were involved with it and signed the petition. It kicked up a lot of old baggage around here of, you know, these are a bunch of spoiled, snotty kids. They're not even Americans. They've got big, fancy degrees. They don't know nothing, on and on and on. And so, unfortunately, she is, just by starting this petition and doing what every American has a right, and I'd say a duty to do if they disagree with something the government's doing, she's caught an awful lot of grief about it.
I thought to have her kind of be the spokesman against it was rather good, because, you know, it's an individual that has no dog in the fight either way, you know, kind of looked a little silly to me. You know, she got on TV and with a Russian accent complaining about, you know, America, an American issue, and, you know, I thought looked bad.
You know, because she's a woman, not born and raised in America, forget about the South, and a professor with a degree, for God's sake. This is the perfect sort of person to rant and rave about.
Some people wanted to raise Cain about her putting it together, but, you know, I said, well, it is what it is, and, you know, this issue isn't about her. Then I went up to the city council, the city hall, and got a copy of the petition. I scanned through and looked at the names just to see, you know, whether I thought this was legitimate. And a good portion of the names, you know, I'd say 50% of them were college students, so that didn't really concern me, because, you know, college students are not particularly, you know, well entrenched in the town. They're going to be here for a little while and gone. I did see a few names on there that kind of surprised me, but not many, and most of them, frankly, I never had heard of, so I don't know, you know, if they're transients, W&L professors that I just don't, you know, faculty and stuff that they're always changing, or what. There wasn't a whole lot of what I would say the local folks that are here, that have been here, that are connected to the history, which didn't surprise me.
Anyway, they gathered up signatures on the petition. They went before City Council, and City Council had heard some other complaints about the flags. And so the City Council went, well, we just can't ban one set of flags, this being America and everything, but we can ban them all. And that's pretty much what the City Council did in reaction to this petition.
They did what I considered their best legal option, which was to, throw the baby out with the bathwater, which was to, bar even the colleges from being able to fly their flags. That was the only chance they had of legal defense, and we're still hoping we can overcome that, because I think it was quite obvious that the reason they barred all the college flags and everybody else was to get to us. So there is a legal argument to be made.
One does not make an inclusive community, peaceable kingdom, by passing laws that are exclusionary, and this law is exclusionary. Everything except what local, state, and federal flags are prohibited, which, if they didn't do it that way, they'd get stuck on some constitutional issue.
I always felt that, knowing the attitude of City Council, that if we forced their hand and they let us have it, that they would try to find some way to block it in the future. So, I wasn't caught off guard that they did that he made that suggestion. I was surprised that they would risk a legal challenge and actually go through with it. I thought that was going to end up being a lot more bluster than action. So.
Now, it wasn't an easy fight at all. People came here from all over the East Coast and as far away as I remember, Illinois, to protest this ordinance.
It was sort of a social media thing. It became a big topic on Facebook. So, I never would even join Facebook until I joined it right a month before that rally, because so many people were discussing this there. So it became a good place to organize and announce our plans.
There is another kind of genocide. It's cultural genocide. And that's what's being practiced in this town at this time.
We will not go away. We will not change. And we will not go silently into the night.
If they don't let us in the council chamber, I'll give a speech at the door. I'm not ready to be diplomatic anymore.
But those people in the council and all these others fighting against our culture better remember, if they don't do the right thing, they'll end up in hell with Lincoln and Grant and Sherman and Sheridan and all the others.
If we don't get to go in, we don't get to make our voice known. We've made it known here today. And they can hide in that room with their friends and do what they want to. But we're not ashamed to do it right out here, or anybody can come. So, if you'll go over here, out this gate to the left.
While we were down there having the rally, the road was getting packed out with supporters of the ordinance. So, all of our folks didn't get to have their say basically until way late into the evening. That was probably the biggest packed house that there's ever been for anything that the Lexington City Council's ever done. We were there till midnight or something, with a whole lot of people on both sides of the issue. So that was the goal, was to make awareness of it, force City Council to have to do what they were going to do in the public arena. They had the media and everybody else watching what they were going to do, and otherwise try to put the pressure on them that they better make sure that they really wanted to pick that fight.
When I spoke to City Council, first. I just said, censorship is not a road our town wants to go down. And that offended a lot of people. I then proceeded to offend all of the Confederati, because I just said, I don't know if the horse is dead yet, but it's been beaten enough. And you've skewed your priorities and you've forgotten your manners, or possibly both. And I don't know what you think gives you the right to demand that the city of Lexington display your flags for you. You're free to do that yourselves. If you were better mannered like true Southern gentlemen, I don't think you do that because you know how many people they offend.
After nearly 3 hours of public comment, the City Council voted 4-1 to pass the flag ordinance. The story was picked up by national media outlets and even received some international coverage. Angry letters filled the local papers for months.
As I remember, I haven't gotten a single letter supporting the city's decision to ban the flags from the polls.
They passed it, and we've moved on to trying to deal with that, legally and otherwise.
When they didn't get their way, the Sons of the Confederate, at this last go-around, the Sons of the Confederacy set up a boycott Lexington sort of operation, and where they were basically listing businesses that were naughty and nice.
We wanted folks to know that come here for the history, if that's why they want to be here. All right, here's a handful of businesses that really pushed to get this flag ban passed. If you're here and you want to support the history, don't shop there. And here's a list of businesses that were against the ordinance, and and if they flew flags for Lee Jackson Day and so forth. If you're in town, don't shop here, shop there. And feel free to ask when you go into a store before you buy something, if they're not on this list, ask them how they feel.
But how much the boycott has really hurt, I don't think it's hurt very much. I don't think there are that many people who are involved in it. But I do think, there's still a sizable number of tourists who come to town because of the Civil War. And I think partially because of this flap, Lexington might miss out on some opportunities to cash in on the anniversary of the Civil War, the centennial of it, or the sesquicentennial.
Once you tell people, no, you're going to get flag activists, but you're going to get a certain type of person too that doesn't like to be told, you can't do that. Don't tell me what to do. You're going to see people come out of the woodwork for something like that. And it's just going to be the beginning of a firestorm.
We decided to make it a bigger event for people to come in for the weekend versus the day.
They vowed, they said, gee, if you don't let us fly these flags on the poles, you're going to see them a whole lot more often than you ever imagined, and you're going to see flags that you don't want to see, like the real stars and bars and the real St. Andrew's Cross. Is that what it is? The St. Andrew's Cross, the classic Confederate flag that everybody thinks. And they were as good as their word. And the city on this past Lee Jackson Day was besieged with people with all sorts of Confederate flags.
We organized to have folks stand downtown with flags underneath the poles where the flags would have been flying had the ordinance not been adopted.
It was a big scene. They were shouting at cars going by and just having a grand time flagging the town. They also went by the mayor's house and by somebody on city council's house. So they did what they said they were going to do. You don't allow us to fly these reasonably innocuous flags, and we're going to sock it to you. And so they have.
Well, I wish I was in Dixie, away, away, in Dixieland, I'll take my stand, live and die in Dixie, away, away, away down south in Dixie, away, away, away down south in Dixie. That first off, everything they think about us, our ancestors, and the Confederate cause is absolutely wrong. But they also just do not get it, that this flag has absolutely no political connotations. It never did. It's not a government flag. It's not a national flag. It's the soldier's flag.
We did go through downtown and ask businesses if they would be willing to put up flags for Lee Jackson Day, and we had pretty good response. I think we had about 15 businesses that said they would. So we put the flags up. Several of them were brutally harassed. Some of the flags were stolen.
Some of the businesses during that weekend felt a little intimidated. What would you do? You know, you're, say, a 45 or 50-year-old person running this little shop, and you've never had any trouble, and all of a sudden, a half a dozen people in Confederate uniforms, who are way bigger than you are, come and stick a flag in your face and say, "You're going to hang this." I'm sure they asked more politely than that, but there certainly was an intimidation factor in it. And at least one business that I know the owner of did feel intimidated, and was kind of indignant about the whole thing, about it, feeling pressured.
One store had a corporate affiliation. A couple of folks were, calling up and telling them corporate office they were flying, swastikas or something like that. Just to try to make it sound as bad as possible, so that they would get harassed. Have people calling in from Chicago or somewhere wanting to know what the heck was going on in Lexington.
But they talked her into putting up the flag, and instantly people started writing on JCPenney's national headquarters Facebook page, horrible things about the shop here, saying, "Take it down, take it down. What is this? You're ruining your whole national image," and threatening all sorts of things. And so the corporate headquarters said, "Lady, you want to have a JCPenney sign up there? Lose that Confederate flag." So it came down pretty fast.
So we really couldn't do anything till they actually adopted the thing in September. So, my goal was to try to get a legal team together and get the suit filed before the event in January of 2012. So we did. We filed suit, shortly before that. And of course, as the federal court systems go, that's grinding out, and probably will be a 3-year process.
The city council has certainly lost the PR war over the whole thing, and because they're afraid to say anything because of the pending lawsuit and feel like anything they say is going to be dragged into court somehow. So with the leaders of the move to ban the flags silenced by the lawsuit and by fear of doing anything to jeopardize it, that leaves it wide open for all these other folks to, rant and rave about city council, rant and rave about the city, go on about the causes of the Civil War and the not causes of the Civil War, and do all the things that they're doing.
It's a two-prong. It's got two main arguments. One is they broke the 1993 agreement, which is more of a contract, breach of contract. Part of our argument even though they've adopted this ordinance, it may preclude other groups from being able to fly their flags, but it doesn't apply to us because we had a prior agreed to legal document stating the city will not interfere with us. And so therefore, like the colleges, they don't have that agreement. No other group does. They can ban all flags, but they can't ban us irregardless. So you've got that aspect of it. And the other is a basically a First Amendment challenge, which is a free speech challenge. And that's where we're saying the law was designed to look neutral on its face, but it was not adopted for a neutral reason. The law basically says that all laws have to be facially neutral in how they treat individuals. But even a law that's written to that effect, if it's adopted to silence a particular individual or group, then the law is void. So that's where we're going after it.
In June of 2012, a federal judge dismissed the SCV's lawsuit against the city of Lexington. In August, the SCV appealed the dismissal. A hearing date for the appeal has not been set.
You know, it had for years been pretty much of a little local issue, and these were all friends and neighbors, and these were all people everybody knows, and it was a fairly small scale, you know, non-scary thing. And while the flags themselves may have scared some people, you know, the proponents of the flags and the Sons of the Confederacy, the local chapter, you know, these were all people everybody's known for years and sees on the street all the time, and so it was kind of a low-key dispute. What I guess has turned out surprising about it, in a way, was that it is turned into such a huge deal, with people from really all over the country getting involved in it, and at this point it's taken on a life of its own, and it's spun out of control.
I don't care for a lot of the politics of a lot of those folks who want to fly the Confederate flag, but we can't just say, no, you can't do that. That would be the most hypocritical thing of all. We can't love them out of it either, I don't think. So I don't think it's going to change in my lifetime.
What I think a lot of this squawk is trying to find a new equilibrium. You know, things like to find a balance, and right now Lexington's relationship to its own past and to its holy relics has gotten disrupted just because of the times. And the squawking, you know, usually when a new equilibrium is being found in nature, there's some broken eggshells. And I think that's a lot of what's going on right now. And I don't know how you find, you know, how it's all going to shake down and how that balance is going to be found. Lexington can't just dig up its dead generals and trade them.
As long as Lee and Jackson are buried in Lexington, there's going to be folks that want to come here for that. And they're going to want to see these symbols and this history promoted. So, you know, it's more of a battle of the wheels at this point as to who's going to outlast the other one almost. It's a kind of a chess game where neither one can really win.
But for these people who fly these flags, who feel so strongly about it, I can only imagine the thought being, if you can't fly it in Lexington, Virginia, where can you fly these flags? And I don't know. I don't know where else you could. And I think that debate is going to go long into the future.